It being the appointed hour, I hereby call to order the regular meeting of the Ojai Planning Commission for April 5th, 2023. Sherry, could we have a roll call, please? Oh, it's Maura. Oh, excuse me. Maura, could we have a roll call?
Yes, thank you. Chair Quillisi,
Here?
Commissioner Trent,
Here.
Commissioner Bennett,
Here.
Commissioner Murphy. Here. Commissioner Starkweather.
Here.
Terrific. We
Thank
have
you.
a quorum. Pledge of Allegiance, Commissioner Murphy, if you'll lead us, please.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, approval of the agenda. Any changes to the agenda, Lucas?
No.
Thank you. Next is public communications, the time set aside for anyone who wishes to speak to the Planning Commission on items of city business other than scheduled agenda items. I see only one person in the audience, and I think you're here for the public hearing, sir. Okay. Maura, do we have anyone in the waiting room with a hand raised?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Then we will move on to the consent items, and that there are three, the minutes of the last three regular meetings of the Planning Commission, February 15th, March 1st, and March 15th. Do any commissioners have any refinements to those?
Nope. No.
I sent a little bit of errata to Sherry, specifically on February 15th. The first page, last paragraph, it did not mention Commissioner Starkweather. And then just a couple of grammar items.
Didn't it say I was absent up there at the top?
It says absent none,
Oh, I'm looking through, March 15th?
February 15th.
Oh, February, oh, God, way
Tab
back
1,
there.
tab 1,
Okay.
bottom paragraph.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't say you said yes, no, or please leave me
How I
alone.
voted? Oh, okay.
No, this was on site visits.
Oh.
On March 1st, page 2,
What was the item? Let me tell you if I went there. The lot line adjustment. I think I said I had been there before, but I could be wrong.
if you know the answer to that on February 15th, we should add that,
I would say it's the same as everybody else,
Okay.
my recollection.
if we can make that change. You visited the sites and had no ex parte contacts. That was the lot line adjustment and the second-story addition on Ayers. Okay. On March 1st, page 2, questions for staff. Second bullet, were should be where. And under Commissioner deliberation, it says at the end of the first paragraph there, he would like, and I would suggest striking it since we don't know for sure what Commissioner Starkweather would like.
I'm sure that's fine, I don't care.
And, I just asked a question on March 15th because it said the applicant was, on this applicant was Natalie Oaksner, and then on page 2 it said the architect Tom Oaksner. So I was just confused by that, granting that I'm easily confused. Anyway, if those minor changes are okay with everybody, then a motion to approve the consent items would be in order.
So move.
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner Murphy? Any discussion?
I have to abstain on one of those because I wasn't here.
He's just doing it as a.
You're only voting on the accuracy of the minutes.
I can't vouch for that because I wasn't here.
Okay, then
You can abstain if you want, yeah.
you can
I'll just
abstain on
abstain.
one of the items,
Yeah.
okay? Any other discussion? Nope. All right, then, Maury, let's have a vote on items 1, 2, and 3. Or, let's take them one by one, I guess.
Yeah.
On item 1, the minutes of the 15th of February.
Commissioner Quillisi, or Chair
Yes.
Quillisi?
Yes.
Commissioner Trent?
Yes.
Commissioner Bennett?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
And are you voting, Commissioner
Yes,
Starkweather?
I'm voting on this one.
Okay. Then, roll call on item 2.
Chair Quillisi?
Yes.
Commissioner Starkweather?
Yes.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
Commissioner Bennett?
Yes.
Commissioner Trent?
Yes.
Terrific. And item 3, a roll call?
Chair Quillisi?
Yes.
Commissioner Bennett?
Yes.
Commissioner Trent?
Abstain.
Commissioner Murphy?
Yes.
And Commissioner Starkweather?
Abstain.
Thank you all. All right, next on the agenda is disclosure of site visits and ex parte contacts. One site is in play tonight, 510 El Paseo. Commissioner Trent? Site visit and ex
Oh,
parte
sorry.
contacts.
Yeah. Yes, I'm familiar with the site. I visited, no ex parte contacts.
Very good. Commissioner Bennett?
I drove around.
Excuse me, Vice Chair Bennett.
Yes, thank you. I drove around the site several times and am now familiar with it from an external standpoint and from visiting it.
Okay, no ex parte contacts?
None.
Okay. The same for me. I've walked around it a couple of times. No ex parte contacts.
Same here. You really can't see much by.
If you step right
From
up
the
by
outside.
one of the driveway gates, you can kind of see into the
in a
front yard.
little- Yeah.
Yeah.
What's that? That's not me.
Look out.
Ooh.
Oh, sounds like going to the races. I drove by and did not talk to anybody.
Very good. All right. Then, next up is our public hearing item, number 4, design review permit and a variance at 510 El Paseo. Oh, by the way, for those in the audience, the way we do this, we'll call a case, staff will explain it to us. If we have questions to clarify what the request is that should be answered by staff, we'll go through that. Then we'll have the applicant speak, then the public, if anyone in the public wants to speak, then we'll close the public hearing and we'll deliberate on the case. Okay? Very good. Gentlemen?
Thank you. I believe Alex has a presentation.
All right.
Thank you, Lucas. Thank you, Chair Quillisi and Commissioners. This design review permit and variance is for an increase in the maximum allowable fence height for a required pool fence within the front yard setback of a single-family residence located at 510 El Paseo Road. The project is on a 35,700 square foot lot developed with a 2,500 square foot single-story, single-family residence. The applicant is proposing to install a 38-foot swimming pool on the property in the front yard setback area. This would be 38 feet from the main residence and 36 feet from the front property line. Now, per Code Section 9208, every outdoor swimming pool shall be completely surrounded by a fence or wall not less than 5 feet in height, with the purpose of that fence being to create a passive barrier to restrict access to the swimming pool. Now, however, pursuant to Code Section 102-805, the maximum fence height within the front yard setback area is 4 feet. Now, for this reason, the applicant is requesting approval of tonight's design review permit and variance to allow an increase in the allowable fence height from 4 to 5 feet to satisfy the minimum height requirements for a pool security fence. Now, regarding a variance is required when a proposed project has specific features which are outside of the boundaries of the zoning district's development standards. A variance is a request for relief from those zoning district development standards to alleviate an unusual hardship to a particular property. Now, if granted, it would permit the owner to use the land in a manner that is not otherwise permitted in the municipal code. So pursuant to section 10.2.2606, the granting of a variance requires the review and positive consideration of 6 factors. Special circumstances applicable to the property, the necessity for the preservation and enjoyment of a substantial property right possessed by other properties. This would not be, including it would not be detrimental to public health. It does not constitute a special privilege, inconsistent with the limitations upon other properties in the vicinity. It does not allow use or an activity which is not otherwise expressly authorized by regulations governing the subject property. And then lastly, it would merely not be inconsistent with the general plan and would be incompliant with secret provisions. So those are the positive considerations that staff has looked at for this property.
6 elements of the crime.
6 elements, yes, sir. And as indicated in the resolution, staff has found this project to be in positive consideration of all of those conditions and opted to bring this forward today. Additionally, per Code Section 10.2.2003, approval of a design review permit is required if a project is requiring a variance. So that's why we've brought both to you tonight. Now, ideally, this pool and required fence would be located outside of the front yard area. And the reason is fence heights in the side and rear yard areas can be up to 6 feet as pursuant to Code Section 10.2.805, where it allows the maximum height for fences in the rear and side yard areas to be 6 feet. Now, the reason the applicant is not doing that is because this particular parcel has unique circumstances that make it difficult to build in the rear yard area. Now, firstly, this property is triangular, and in 2021, the community development director determined that the entire street frontage to be front yard and the other 2 sides to be side yards. Thus, this property actually has no rear yard at the moment, which is particularly unique relative to other properties in that vicinity. Secondly, there are 3 protected mature oak trees in the side yard areas that limit the adequate space for the proposed pool. Additionally, any construction in those side yard areas would require a tree permit as Code Section 41104, which requires a tree permit if there's going to be construction in the drip line areas of protected oak trees. Then lastly, in the side yard areas of this site, there's a steep grade and a driveway. And both are contributing to this difficulty of building this proposed pool in this side yard areas. And specifically due to the existing grade that is there right now, additional work would need to be performed to level out any proposed pool area. So in total, due to the lot's irregular dimension, the presence of protected trees, the existing grade, staff is recommending the Planning Commission approve both the requested design review permit and the variance for an increase in the maximum fence height from 4 to 5 feet. Happy to take any questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions for staff?
Additionally, we have a PowerPoint, some visuals that I think we'd like to also go through as well, just to kind of
Okay.
put a visual on what Alex has been talking about just a minute ago.
Got a question, sorry. All those great facts that you gave us, which seem to
Required findings, I think.
support that, are they outlined in the Planning Commission resolution? Because I was
Yes.
looking at
Yes.
the granting of the variance, you go through those 6 points, but I didn't see it under that part of it. So is it written somewhere else?
I think it starts on, this is attachment A, the resolution. I think it starts on page 2 And the fourth recital on page 2 begins the required findings. And first A is not part of, it's all basic provisions are met, and that's fine. But I think B through,
Chair Quilisi, yes, on page 5.
something like that.
Yes, sir, on
Those
page 5.
outline the
yeah.
6
But
required.
page 5 has the variance standards.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So you're just summarizing what you wrote earlier.
Effectively,
right,
yeah. I'm
yes,
going through
right.
each point and explaining. Yes, yes,
Because
sir.
it doesn't
yeah.
spell those out under those
page
variance
2, 3, and
categories.
4
Okay.
have one set of findings, and then
I'm just trying to be more efficient in my reading here.
Sure.
5 and 6, another set.
Additionally, yeah, it's in the resolution. It's required to be in the resolution as a justification for an argument for a positive recommendation, which is what we have before you tonight. I should also mention that we have findings for the design review permit as well, and that starts on page 2, as Quilisi had mentioned.
Okay,
Chair Quilisi had mentioned,
very good.
and then
Thank you.
continues after the I think it's the 6th whereas on page 4, and that's where you see where Alex had summarized those specific findings in the positive.
I see.
That's, Yep.
So we have some visuals. Alex is going to run through this real quick. It's something that we can always turn back to if you have questions throughout.
And before Lucas goes in to the visuals, these are also in your packet. So I am just kind of calling out what's just more
Your-
attention to what's already there, so you can follow along in your packet if you'd like.
your
So-
title said rear yard photos,
Yes, sir. Yeah.
but the decision was that there is no rear yard.
That is correct. Yeah. So that's a mistake on my part.
There'll be
yeah.
stealth photos.
Well, I wouldn't say that there's no rear fence. There's no rear fence line on either side. It's both side yard fences. This property
Ah.
still has a rear yard area.
Okay, not to get into deliberations yet, yeah.
But yes, take your point, sir. Yeah. So the first slide here is and thanks to the applicant for providing these pictures for us. This is a first look at the rear yard, and you'll see on the left-hand side a mock-up of what the viewpoint of those photos are coming from.
Now I understand.
So, does this, just let me know if this is all confusing. But you'll see the numbered vantage points, if you will, from 1 to 3, and you'll see on the left-hand side the map of where those pictures are looking towards. So you'll see both 1 and 2 are looking towards the driveway that's leading up to that rear area of the residence. And then you'll see the third picture is looking towards the main residence from that back corner of the lot, and you'll see remnants of the oak trees that are in that area. And then also hoping to keep in mind where the proposed
Page
pool.
13.
Yeah, where the proposed pool is being proposed. Yeah, that's the first. This is also in the rear yard. Rear area,
Northwest corner of the parcel,
northwest corner of the parcel. Thank you, Chair. Of this lot, and these are pictures 4 and 5. They're both looking from the northwest corner towards the main residence, and again, you'll see remnants of the large oak trees that are in that area, looking towards that side yard area where those trees are located, and you'll see part of that bit of that grade that's happening, that bit of a slope from that side yard area. Thank you, Lucas. And then lastly, second to lastly, this is another vantage point from the northwest corner. 6 and 7. 7 is looking actually towards the corner, whereas 6 is looking again towards the main residence on the side. And again, just more evidence towards the development that is back there already, and also the very, very large trees that are tree branches that are overhanging over this site. So you can see kind of the difficulty that would arise from building a pool in that area, and also the potential for impacting the critical root zones of these large trees. Thank you, Lucas. And then lastly, this is just another vantage point. We wanted to add this last one, just to show again the trees that are in that area. You'll notice the first three do not include the fourth tree that is also in that side yard area. But this is a most recent picture, thanks to the applicant, just to show that there is the existence of a fourth tree that is in that rear area. So this is just another vantage point from similar areas, but the purpose of this is just to show that there is actually 4 trees in that back.
Yeah.
Oak trees. Thank you, Lucas. And then lastly, here's just a Google image of the lot from a satellite vantage point, just to further kind of demonstrate.
Photoshop to add the pool.
Yes, sir. That is my Photoshop skills.
Do we have that picture here?
No, you do not have that picture there. Yeah, this is a Google image, just to sort of show the irregular dimensions of the lot. So you'll see the 2 side yard areas that have been. This was determined in 2021. Those 2 side yard areas, and then also that entire. When I mentioned the entire street facing portion, that yellow line that's curving, that is what we mean by that in terms of the entire street facing portion of the lot being identified as the front yard. So and you'll see from this vantage point as well the amount of trees that are located on this lot. So that's the end of the PowerPoint, and just wanted to give you guys a further look on what's happening.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any questions for staff?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. So the fence that's in the front yard now, it's how tall?
6 feet.
It's 6 feet? And
Existing non-conforming.
non-conforming, right?
Yeah.
And then, per code, we need to have another fence around the pool itself.
So actually, per building code, you only need if the goal is a pool,
Yeah.
then you only actually need 1 fence
Mm-hmm.
to satisfy the pool security
Right.
perimeter. So theoretically, you could use either that fence that's existing or that new fence that's being proposed. The issue is without the benefit of permit, because of that fence was.
No permit.
There's no permit on that fence. We have no recollection or evidence of that fence being permitted from us.
Yeah.
And then it's also 6 feet, so it would require a variance to come.
Would require a variance anyway.
Yeah, it would
Some sort.
require a variance
Yeah.
anyway. Yeah.
Commissioner Bennett, any questions?
Well, I guess it's the same one. I'm struck by the site drawings and plan with the smaller fence that's tight to the pool. If they had decided later that they wanted to remove that, they would have to come in and permit the 6-foot fence that surrounds the rest of the property. But they could do that.
They could, and I just want to jump in here real quick. It's not uncommon to build, by today's standards, to build a fence around the pool in close proximity, and the main reason for that is safety. I mean, it's safety with a capital S. Children on a regular basis are out. I don't know if they have kids or not, but for future reasons,
Yeah.
if they have friends over that happen to
Some
have kids,
parcel owner
it's-
might, and the children could run loose in the front yard.
Correct.
There's no fence all around the property, just the front.
No, it's.
No, there's a
It's
all
all
fence.
over.
It surrounds the property completely.
Yeah.
Yes.
The
Oh,
2
okay.
side, that's how we got no rear yard. It just occurred to me
I see.
that we've got 2 side yard fences
It's a
No
triangle.
no rear fence, so no rear yard.
Yeah, and it's a triangle lot, so. it's
Yeah.
kinda
So-
weird.
But it's 6-foot fence all the way around, different types. It's
Different type.
bamboo on the curve and it's wood on the other two sides.
I see.
So another quick question, if the property owners were to sell and we get new owners in here, the new owners decide, oh, sorry, and the new owners decide to remove the front fence, would that fence that's around the pool still, it would still apply, the variance would still stand, it would be okay, they wouldn't have to build a new 6-foot fence around the front?
Correct.
Correct. Okay, cool. All right. And then vice versa, if they wanted to remove the fence around the pool and build a new fence in the front, they would have to get a new variance for that.
Unless it was a 4-foot fence in the front.
Well, no,
They'd
'cause
still
it's
need a
not-
5-foot fence
they
around the
still-
pool.
Technically, there is no fence in there now, according to us.
Well, it's
There's no fence in the
legal
front.
non-conforming.
Legal non-conforming, right.
I would prefer to say just non-conforming.
Non-conforming, okay. Sorry. Thank you.
Leave the legality in question.
Any adjustment to the perimeter fence would require, it can exist as it is, but any adjustment to it would take permits. So if a future owner wanted to adjust the existing perimeter fence, they'd have to get it permitted.
Could you have a bamboo fence around a pool and meet the standard?
It's a building code question.
That is a building code question.
I didn't see any restriction in the code on what sort of fence it is.
It's not necessarily material, it's whether or not
Height
you
it
can,
is.
it's climbable. That's really what it boils down to.
And the gaps in the material.
Yeah.
I mean, a bamboo is pretty tight, so
Might be fall overable, but.
sturdiness is in question, yes.
Okay? That's it? Oh, you have a question. Very good.
That 5-foot fence around the pool, did I see in the documentation that that is a removable fence?
It is removable, and it's a mesh fence, and the fence materials are in your packet as well, but it is removable, yes.
It's not bolted to the concrete
No.
surround, okay?
Yeah.
So that suffices with our code as being a safety? I mean, if they can take it down for a party or
It does
whatever.
meet our safety requirements, yes.
It does, okay.
Removable means, but this is a permanent fence, they can't remove it if we approve it.
No, it's not permanent.
These are two different statements.
Yeah.
Physically, it's removable. Per our code, to keep the pool in legality, they could not remove it without
Okay.
replacing it with a different 5-foot fence.
Okay, that's what I was trying to clarify.
And I believe the code says it has to be fully enclosed at all times. So this is a fully enclosed perimeter fence.
Okay? I think that suffices questions for staff. Let's hear from the applicant. Please introduce yourself and tell us what you have to tell us, sir.
See, do I have to turn this on, or?
No. If it comes on, it's happening by magic.
We don't,
My name's Bill Mellett. I'm the landscape architect for this project and the applicant. Just a few things I'll speak to are maybe could we put the picture of the
Overhead?
overhead on?
Yeah. There we go.
As we've discussed, there's no rear yard, 2 side yards, and. Oop. Yes. The Google Earth, yes. Because the front yard extends from the front face of the house, from the 2 corners of the building, there's very little buildable space actually in this 2 quote-unquote side yards. The one is currently their driveway, so if they were to build in that location, it would require the removal of the existing driveway and inhibit access to the rear of the house. And the other side yard is where the existing oak trees are, and they would be impacted by any construction in that area. In the existing fence in the front yard, the reason that we're not requesting that that be the pool security fence is, I believe there's a rail, the bamboo is attached to a rail fence on the front, so it's technically climbable. So that doesn't meet the code there. So that's why we're proposing a fence within a fence, in a sense. So,
It's a one more layer of safety,
correct.
okay?
That's really my only comments, in case there's any questions.
Any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, did you guys consider a permanent fence around the pool? Or-
Yes, this meets the requirement, and the client didn't want to add another fence further out. They were concerned mainly with containing the pool within its own fence, separate from the house. Sometimes we'll have fences connected to the house, and then you require alarms on the door, and their front door is in the front yard, so they needed to separate it, so that's kind
No,
of why they went.
I get that. I guess my question is, have they considered a permanent fencing around the pool versus the baby lock, which is
Oh,
removable?
I install a lot of, or design a lot of people go for that. It looks temporary, but they leave it,
Yeah.
I don't know, they
Yeah, and
want that.
I'm not necessarily concerned about the
Yeah.
owners of the property today, but if
Mhm.
they do sell and the new owners
Right.
come in and they say, oh, I don't like it, and they remove it and they get rid of the front fence, and now there's no fencing at all.
Well, at the time of sale, the property would,
Well,
there would be a code inspection.
Yeah, but after that.
Well, any fence can
Yeah,
be
I
removed,
know, I'm just-
permanent or.
Just hypothetical.
No, I understand.
Questions for the applicant? I'm satisfied. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here present who wishes to speak on this? Oh, I'm sorry. Having finished with the applicant, we'll now open the hearing, the public hearing for public comment. Is there anyone here present who wishes to speak on this item? Okay, Maura, is there anyone in the waiting room who wishes to speak?
If there's someone in the waiting room who wishes to speak, please raise your hand. We do have someone in the waiting room, but they are not raising their hand, so they might just be wanting to watch.
All right, very good. Then we will close the public comment portion of the public hearing and come back to deliberations. I did give Alex a little bit of errata in the resolution itself. And he can get to that later. I did have one question. This is in attachment A, page 4, the very top 2 lines. It talks about level of service. Are we still going with that, or is that just something that we have to fix in the code to use vehicle miles traveled now as opposed to level of service? Do we have to change? I think we have to change the code to do that.
That will be updated eventually, but level of service is what we're using currently. VMT is something that it's evaluated at a much larger scale. For instance, larger projects. And for
Okay.
right now, the general plan covers LOS, not necessarily VMT. However, state law does cover VMT, which is what we're required to do as well. So yes to
So-
both. But for the purposes of what we're looking at here, LOS.
Either on this one,
Yes, VMT is much more regional based. LOS is much more local based.
okay?
And vehicle for the acronyms, for everybody that's listening, VMT is vehicle miles traveled, LOS is level of service.
And the one additional point on this is that the state law requires analysis of vehicle miles traveled from a CEQA perspective. It does not prevent the city from considering level of service in its own traffic management policies.
Okay. Should we be mentioning vehicle miles traveled somewhere in the analysis?
Not for this project because it's an existing single-family house.
'Cause
There's no
there
need
isn't
to.
any. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. There was something else. Commissioner Starkweather, your thoughts on this?
Seems like it straightforward. It meets all the criteria for a variance, from what I can see.
It doesn't impact the neighbors, so I have no problem with it.
So we're past asking questions, and we are,
Well, we can still ask questions of
Right.
staff or the applicant if we wish to.
no, but we're at
We're
the
really
point.
in
we're
deliberation.
we're in deliberation, okay. I think it's a great project, and I think that the pool size is very sympathetic with the lot. It's a small pool. And, you know, it's a funny lot and a funny house. They aren't rectilinear, and I think they've chosen the right place for the pool. You know, my own desire would be to get this baby fence out of there. But, you know, they've got belts and suspenders on this.
Yeah,
With
that would
the-
be a different variance, but
That'd be a different variance,
Yeah.
but they can do that later if they want. They can ask for it. They're not necessarily gonna get it, but,
I
no, I'm very much in favor of this project. I think it's
very
great.
good. Commissioner Trent?
Yeah, I'm in favor of it as well. I mean, the placement is, I mean, you really can't put it anywhere else. I think that's.
Doesn't look
pretty much
like
what
it.
we do. My only concern, though, is the removability of the baby lock fence. I'd like to see something a little more permanent, just because, I mean, even if you wanted to do a fence in the front, it's gonna have to be a fence that has some space in it so traffic can see around that corner as per code. But if it meets our code standards, then it meets our code standards.
Okay. Three thoughts come to mind. First of all, putting anything in the northwest corner of the parcel, it's not clear to me from the overhead that we had that the pool would even fit. And if it did, it would be detrimental to at least one of those mature oak trees that we don't want to mess with. Second, it reminds me of two prior cases that came before the Planning Commission. One was at 209 South Ventura, where a pool went up in the front yard behind a wall, in this case, because there were big trees in the backyard that would have been damaged by putting a pool in. And the Planning Commission approved that. And there was another one that we just did recently on North Signal Street, where we had exactly the same situation of the only real variance being putting a taller fence in the front yard. And that was also a pretty clear-cut case to me, and the Planning Commission approved it. So I think it's a great project, and I think that I would vote in favor of it. Any other deliberations here?
Do we need a motion?
We do.
Okay. I move that we accept
Approve?
the design review permit and the variance for this property. Do I need to give the numbers?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I'll second it.
A second, thank you, sir. Any discussion? Then Maura, let's call the roll on item 4, please.
Chair Quillisi,
Yes.
Commissioner Trent,
Yes.
Commissioner Bennett,
Yes,
Commissioner Murphy,
Yes.
Commissioner Starkweather.
Yes.
There you are. Talk to staff. Very good. Let's move on then to item 5. Future agenda items. Take it away, Lucas.
Thank you, Chair. So coming up on April 19th, we have the formula business coming back before this body, and we have just submitted to the paper the public hearing notice. So certainly that item is on the agenda, as well as
Okay, 2 weeks ahead, yeah.
2 weeks ahead, yes, as well as a kind of a program overview of the housing element. So we have 19 elements. This has actually already come before this body before.
19 programs within
Programs.
the element? Yeah.
Within the element itself. Did I reverse those terms? 19 programs within the element.
You're talking
Yes.
about the action plan?
Yes.
Okay.
So in there, we have brought forward as a discussion item and kind of an update and prioritizing certain programs based on timing and what we've quote unquote committed to. We're bringing that back to discuss, not necessarily in terms of changing, but just in terms of where staff is at with some of these items. So it's kind of an update. You'll have an opportunity to ask questions on some of these programs and not necessarily
I
prioritizing
remember a
because the
color-coded
programs
chart
themselves.
that showed percentage completion and stuff like that.
Yes, correct. Yes, exactly. So it'll be a similar Excel sheet that'll have those bits and pieces. Probably a little bit more refined than what it was maybe 6 months ago or 7 months ago when this was last
Far back,
discussed. Yeah.
We won't be voting on anything.
There is no vote on that. It's simply an item to identify where staff is moving on some of these items. Some of these items are staff driven and have actions that only staff is really kind of working through. Some of those are going to be coming before this body, and then obviously City Council as well.
So the formula business ordinance has been advertised, so is the actual language in that advertisement so that we can see it, or
No, not within the notice. The notice is just giving a summary.
do we have to wait until our normal period of time? Because we're gonna have a deadline to have to vote on this thing, I assume, that
Correct.
night.
Correct. And there was
This will be first reading, or we don't do first and second.
there is no first
No,
reading for
no.
this body. It is a recommendation through a resolution.
There's kind of a
And
time
then
deadline on this thing.
Correct. And then attached to that resolution is a draft ordinance as an exhibit. So that's what you can expect, which is typical of what we see when we bring forward ordinances that are then being sent off to City Council.
The meeting that we had, a couple of weeks ago now, where you presented formula businesses
The
to
community
the
input
public,
session.
Yeah.
that's the one, are you drawing the ordinance up based on the recommendations from that meeting?
In part.
In part, yes. For this body, there's been a lot of discussion that's been going on over the last 2 years. It's been before this body 4 times, before City Council 3 times, I want to say, maybe 4. This will be the 5th time this body has seen this. Now, granted,
Three of
in
us weren't here.
2021, this body was slightly different than we are today. So there is some homework that's necessary. And I would encourage this body to go to our landing page that we have for this. I've created, with help with staff, I've created basically a landing page that identifies every action that's taken place by City Council and by this body as well. And then we also have the meeting that took place, the community input session that took place on March 21st.
So we go to the city website /formula business, or how do we find this
Yeah.
thing of which you speak?
You're gonna ask
The
me that.
landing
Some
page.
things
I call it the landing page,
It's
but
the
let me
webpage.
get the specific.
I'm sure the people out there in television land want to know as well.
Sometimes it can be tricky finding these. I always had trouble finding the update of the general plan.
I want to know where.
All right, so it is ojai.ca.gov/formula, and then I want to say it's a hyphen business. So you do that, it'll get you to this page, and there is a wealth of information. Because if you're looking for a single place versus sitting there searching, it's here.
But it's
There's relevant documents attached to that as well
site on the webpage.
on the city's webpage, yes.
Okay. And
Do you
if
have a,
You can also get to it through the drop-down menus at the top, departments, drop down to Community Development Department, click over
Okay.
Formula Business.
Okay.
department,
Right.
I'm sorry, say that again, please.
Departments,
Yep.
hover over that, and it opens up a context menu. Scroll down to Community Development Department.
Yep.
That opens up another context menu. Slide over to Formula Business. Click that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
If I recall, there was some vague language the last time we looked at this, and we were gonna get some additional clarification on the definitions of that. Or is that on the website?
You may or may not receive clarification. I'm probably leaning towards no clarification, meaning those definitions are going away
Oh, okay.
altogether.
Oh,
But you're gonna give us a recommended
I
ordinance.
can't go into any
it's not
more
on tonight's
detail on it.
agenda.
We're beginning deliberation. We can't do that yet.
But
I
you're
look
gonna-
forward to that deliberation.
Is,
You're gonna
in
give
2
us
weeks.
a recommended ordinance, I take it.
Yes.
Okay.
is there a landing page on the housing element as well?
The landing page for the housing model is probably boiled within and baked within the general plan update
You, if you
landing
search
page.
on general plan,
Yeah, there's
It'll
a
come
housing.
up with the listing of all
Actually,
the
it's
elements.
even,
Gotta
it's
look
even
up
easier
there.
than that. If you just go to our homepage, we have a hyperlink for it. It says general plan update on the right-hand side, which is where it goes, my Ojai, and then in the middle is Ojai redistricting
That has
process.
the newest version that was amended in December.
I have not uploaded that one at this point, but I could.
That would be nice.
Okay.
So we're looking at the actual one.
Yes.
But that is on the council website under the December 13th agenda packet.
Yeah, that's true.
They might have amended it at the meeting. How do I know? I have to listen to the whole meeting?
There was no, there
They
were,
didn't do any
there were no
amendments, and the
amendments.
minutes for the next meeting would reflect that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, because that's what I had looked at before, but, so
Yeah, 'cause
on
I didn't make
the,
any changes before I
on the
sent it to
landing
HCA.
page for the formula business ordinance, do you have a summary of comments that followed up from that meeting that a couple of us attended?
Once again, we're having deliberation here. I
No, I'm
can't
just
go into.
asking-
I'm going to
what's-
shut that down. That matter is likely to be litigated, so we're no longer going to discuss the item that's not on tonight's agenda.
I'm not talking about the substance of the ordinance. I'm just having what's available. Are we gonna get that information?
Yes, the information that will be provided to you will include a summary of the public meeting along with a link to the video.
Okay.
But we're no longer discussing the item that's not on tonight's agenda.
Yeah, I don't want to get into, yeah, thank you. I don't want to get into the details of it. We're beginning to deliberate, and then we're
No, we're
potentially
not.
getting ourselves into trouble here. So for May 3rd, we have the design review permit, which is a 2-story addition to the main residence, 1206 Ayers Avenue. That item is ready to come back before this body. We have met with the bodies that were here when we had.
That was February 15th?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's correct. And we've come up with some solutions and some compromises. So I think we're looking forward to bringing that forward.
Great.
There's potentially another item, but I don't have it on here yet, and I don't want to mention it because it may or may not be on and ready by the 3rd, but it's a possibility. And then we have all these pending. I know we've noted 3, but as I've said before, we have several items right now that are in for review and being processed. The ones that are here as pending are getting closer to being complete and then coming before this body for public hearing. And each of these are public hearing items.
Any other questions on that?
No, just a quick question. The one that's the appeal, is that one we've seen before, or is this a new one?
No, that is one this body has seen
It's
before.
the one
The-
at the end of Topa Topa.
Okay.
And I will say that we have just been recently handed new information or updated information. So we're reviewing that currently. And then at the bottom here, it notes that there is a special joint meeting that's scheduled for April 18th. That is in regards to the general plan update, which I will be mentioning as a part of the director's
Regards to
report.
what?
The general plan update.
Okay. And what's the time? You gave me a notice, but I don't.
6 p.m.
6 p.m., yeah.
And that's gonna be
There is no
here?
end time on that. It's 6 p.m.
Are we
start.
meeting here or somewhere else?
It'll be at Kent Hall.
Ken Hall,
Yep.
okay.
That's right, that's an off week for council.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Great. Put that on the calendar, 6 o'clock on the 18th.
Yes, I would also, I know we've sent out a feeler, and I think we have one commissioner that has yet to respond as to whether or not they're going to be available for that meeting, but I see everybody's writing it down as if they will be attending.
I did respond.
You did? Okay, I was going to say,
It's not me.
actually, I think it was, Chair, I think you haven't responded yet. Or have you responded to Sherry at this point?
I was gone all day and didn't,
Okay,
I haven't looked at my email today.
was a
If it was
couple
in
days
today's
ago,
email.
but anyway.
Oh, well,
all right,
yes, I'll be there.
okay. We will update that. Okay.
I'll be there.
Great. Director's report?
I have 3 things. Usually don't have much, but I do have 3 things tonight that I just wanted to talk through, or at least this isn't meant to be a discussion, more so it's just to provide information and food for thought, I think, for the future. One is, so we've had a work program in the past, right? And then we've tabled that because now we have a new council. On April 18th, we have the general plan update. That's a part of the work program that was a part of what this body was looking at one point in time. So it's to a certain degree establishing and satisfying portions of that work program. But the rest of those items are up in the air in terms of where council stands on those. And the only way in which we can understand where that's moving forward is through a joint meeting. This body, unlike other commissions, typically has the opportunity for up to 3 joint meetings each year. January, March, and September, I believe, or April and September.
Quarterly. At one point there were 4 years ago.
At this, yeah, what I'm seeing is 3 right now.
They have to be at a certain time, or just 3 in the
And
whole
it's
year?
it's really built on
At the council's pleasure.
It's
Okay.
built on, necessity and council's pleasure. So this is satisfying one of those. The next one would then be in September. At this point, what we're looking for is really what the priority portion is, which is the general plan update. So I wanted to make this body aware that we're still doing that, like we've said during the Title 10 update, we're doing that good work. We're moving forward with projects that really kind of influence and impact the city for years in advance. So I wanted to make that note.
Question. So general plan update does not include the housing element, which we have as a separate item on the
It does not.
next
no.
night. Okay, I just wanted to show
Right.
that, okay.
Yeah. And then the other item I wanted to mention is, I've heard it twice tonight, cell phones. If I could ask the commission, I do the same thing, silence your cell phones. It does create a bit of a ruckus. I know I've seen previous meetings where we're in a heavy deliberation and then a cell phone goes off. Either silence it, I'm not saying turn it off, because I know there could be potential emergencies that could arise, but
Silent mode works.
at the very least, please silence. We never had that discussion before. I think it was just an unwritten discussion. I'm kind of making it more formal now. Because I know if it was going off on me, I would certainly be reprimanding myself as well, whether or not it's my wife. So with that being said, that's all that I have for the director's report for tonight.
I have a question. We, the commission, under the last council, established 2 ad hoc committees, one on parking, one on affordable housing. And those are stalled at the moment for lack of any direction from city council. Would it be wrong for us to say, as a commission, that we still have that direction? It hasn't been countermanded by the new council? Couldn't we go ahead and deliberate with these 2 ad hoc committees, and bring back recommendations in the absence of any direction from the new council not to do so? I mean, other
I think-
things that the council passes or instructs, they seem to persist
Right.
until a subsequent council changes that direction.
Sure. Yeah, as leaders change, so does roles, right? I think that's what's happening currently. So in terms of those 2 ad hocs that were created by this body a few months ago, I think at this point, like for instance, let's use parking, the parking committee. That parking committee has since been reestablished and met last Thursday. So that one is up and running again. There,
Council ad hoc
Correct.
committee.
as a council ad hoc. Now, I want to also remind this body that you also serve at the pleasure of
Sure.
of council. So as they bring items to this body, and we've seen several items come before this body, asking for additional research, information, clarification,
Recommendations.
deeper
yeah.
dive, right? So those are the things that this body absolutely, and let me remind this body as well that this is a body that's required by state law. It's not a recommended body itself. it's required by state law. So it's required to be at least 5 members.
But I have a question. Shouldn't we get out in front of these issues? And, you know, the fact that the city council has gone and created its own committee on the same subject matter as we had discussed creating a committee around, and they're doing that without the benefit of the counsel of this commission. I don't know, sort of bespeaks that we're behind the 8 ball, that we're, you know, that the city council's jumping ahead of us, and part of that's our own fault. Because did we have to push that to the side? I mean, why did we?
Did city council have one initially, and then it kind of went away and?
Can I
Yeah, the ad hoc
address this?
did exist in terms of parking. If we're talking about parking and then talking about housing,
Yeah, parking, yeah.
it did exist.
Did not vote to create a new ad hoc committee and assign people to it. That was done by staff after the meeting. They said, let's form a parking committee. It was never voted on by the board.
What, you mean this body
This,
here?
this city council never voted.
Oh, this
to
city
form a
council.
parking committee.
You-
They talked about, let's do it, but there was no vote that we're gonna have a parking committee.
They voted on it about 2 meetings ago, and they created an ad hoc committee of 2
No, they
council
did not
members.
vote on it. I'd like to,
Councilmember Francina, I'm still speaking.
Okay.
Councilmember Francina, I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem Francina and Councilmember Lang, and they met as that ad hoc committee the other day. The city council has created that ad hoc committee. My recommendation to the planning commission, mindful that we all collectively serve the city council, would be to make that request to the city council. How does the city council see the planning commission's prior ad hoc committee as fitting on parking, as fitting into the city council ad hoc committee on parking? I would suggest taking direction from the city council. As to the second committee regarding affordable housing, that is on the city council's agenda this coming Tuesday, on April 11th, at 6 PM. I forget the agenda item number, but the agenda includes the Affordable Housing Committee questions that have been raised by many folks, including some in this room, on the city council agenda, and I'd recommend any commissioner who wishes to ask that question might pose the question to the council at that space. How does the council see any ad hoc, any housing committee the council may form, how does that fit into the existing ad hoc committee of the planning commission? That might be a way to move these fundamental policy questions forward to
we
the
did
council.
vote to recommend that they put 2 planning commissioners on that housing committee.
And I believe that recommendation was conveyed in the staff report to the council.
Yeah, yeah.
So it'll be up to the city council, however, to choose to accept or reject
So we
or
could make
modify
a
that
motion
recommendation.
to recommend that planning commissioners be put on this parking committee too.
Yes, if that item were on the planning commission agenda. It's not on tonight's
So we have to
agenda,
put it on the next.
but it
another
could be
agenda.
added to future agenda, although I would recommend querying with the council members whether their support is or is not there.
Well, that's already been done, but anyway, the other issue is, and this is kind of going on areas of responsibility, I guess. We have an obligation as a planning commission under our housing element to implement the action plan, at least, because it lists there, that's our function and the community development department's function. And part of that relates to both housing and to parking in the sense of eliminating barriers to affordable housing. So to that extent, it seems to me that's our obligation as a planning commission, at least to address that part of parking and housing.
It's one piece to parking. Parking is a much larger
realize
piece.
that. Yeah, I'm
You're
just-
talking about
that
one
piece.
piece,
Now-
correct?
Now, question, so on April 18th, we can pose questions to council about direction on those 2 items, like where do you see the planning commission, how would you like to direct us, et cetera. My other question is part of the function of the planning commission to make recommendations to city council for certain items? And if so, how do we make those recommendations?
So I'll start and maybe you fill in the blanks. There's probably 2 different ways in which that can happen. That can happen by this body making recommendations. However, given that the council hasn't provided the direction to review certain matters at this point through a work program, I don't know that that's necessarily the correct or appropriate avenue at this point.
Okay.
The other avenue would be having conversations with council.
Yeah, so on the 18th
Individually.
would be a good time to do it.
That would be, yes, if that is an agendized item. Remember, the item right now for for this joint meeting is the general plan update
Okay, well-
and the preferred alternatives moving forward.
Well, the general plan encompasses the housing element and parking.
It does, but it's a large discussion, and there's a lot of slides and there's a lot of information. It's a huge step in terms of what we're looking for here. We've gathered all this information over the last 2.5, 3 years. And from that, from community meetings and workshops and, interviews and surveys that we've done,
Is this the final
This-
one from the consultants?
this is what's pushing the preferred alternatives forward on those 5 elements that we've talked about. We've talked about several times throughout. Not necessarily everybody, obviously, because we've been talking about this for over 2 years.
But next Tuesday, this item of the Housing Committee is on the agenda of the City Council.
It is.
So any of you can go and speak, as planning commissioners. Of course, we've already made our recommendation requesting that 2 planning commissioners be put on it. So
Yep.
they know
I
that.
know what happened to that.
Right.
Okay?
That's it for my
The
report.
report, okay. Any commissioners have anything you want to bring up other than what we've already discussed? City Council liaison?
Hello. Well, I wanted to let you know that I was going to speak about these 2 things, the housing element and also the parking committee, the ad hoc affordable housing committee and the parking committee. So we did receive an email with the request. Mayor Pro Tem Francine and I received an email with a request for representation by 2 members of your commission on the parking committee. And so this is something that we'll talk to staff about. Mayor Pro Tem Francina and I have both been ill over the last few days since we've received the email, and so we've been out of commission. And I'm finally back. And so I just wanted to let you know that we're going to be taking that with staff and bringing that to a conversation. And I believe that is something that we can do with just the committee. Yes.
Yes.
If I understand what you've just said, you are recommending that 2 members of the Planning Commission be a part of this ad hoc committee?
What I'm saying is that we have received the request and we have not had a chance to talk
You're
about it.
considering the request?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Considering the request.
Okay,
And-
that's on parking.
Yes,
Now,
correct.
how about affordable housing?
Affordable housing is something that we are going to be talking about at this council meeting. It's, as you know, it's been postponed the last couple of times that it was as an agenda item. And so that is something that we are aware of the request, and that is something that I, as your liaison for this quarter, will make sure is mentioned in our meeting on Tuesday.
Okay.
Yes.
I don't want to speak for any other commissioners here, but my personal opinion is that both these topics involve land use at the very minimum, if not land use and zoning. And that's really what the council should be looking to the Planning Commission for recommendations on.
Yes, I understand. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. There apparently being no other business before the commission at 7:04, we're adjourned.
Wow, that's amazing.
Holy mackerel.
Awesome.
If that isn't a record, it's close.
That's close to a record.
And let me point out that we can make it to our cars with enough light outside that we won't
find
snow.
That's right. We can get dinner.
That's new.
Thank you.
For coming. Yeah. I'm John. Nice to meet you.
Hi, I'm Jamie.
It should be anyway.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
You came.
Feeling better?
Barely.
You came during one of our.
Susan
less
sounded better
populated
today.
Yes. Yes, oh wow.
Oh, we've never,
I was expecting, I was like, oh, it's gonna be a late night.
Next,
Oh.
now on, you better bring your coffee, because
yeah,
my very first meeting, we went till 11:30.
Oh, yeah. We've had some long days.
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
We tend to go into depth.